What's up, my beautiful people? Welcome back to another episode of See It Through My Eyes. I'm Richie, here flying solo with another episode of Story Time. Today, what I will be discussing is my spiritual journey. I hope you guys enjoy this. For whoever is going through a journey similar as mine or has gone through that, hopefully you guys can relate. Hopefully you like it. And if you haven't, please hit that subscribe button. Please hit that like, share, comment in the comment section. Keep it respectful. If you guys want to share about any your own spiritual journey, sorry. Um, so today I will be summarizing just a little bit my spiritual journey from my childhood to where I find myself in the present moment. So yeah, let's get this thing to start. So, um, when I was born, so I was born into a Roman Catholic family. Um, I was baptized, did my communion, did my confirmation at a pretty early age. And since little, my mom, in my family, my mom has always been kind of like the most religious person of our family, whereas everybody else has always kind of been either spiritual, atheist, non believer, so on and so on. Um, and as little, spirituality, specifically religion, was always pushed on me, especially because of my disability. I was always told that I needed to be close to God and I needed to have a strong faith in order to be able to be cured, quote unquote. And it was something that I used to hate since I was little. The earliest that I could remember, I hate going to church. I hate hearing anything about God because to me, it was the same rhetoric that I would always listen to when people would come and tell me, believe in God and he'll be able to cure you and you'll be able to see. And I always used to take that meant that, it was his fault. That it was because of him and that I wasn't good enough and, he was punishing me and that's why I was visually impaired. When I started going into like communion and confirmation, I used to hate that. Besides hating school alone, it was also around the time that I started kind of going through this rebellious phase in my preteens and later teen years, where I hated everything. Um, Situations at both at home and school and out on the streets were pretty bad and started influencing me to kind of think different, feel different, and react different. I started going against everything. I started getting into fights, getting into trouble in school. So when I was being pushed to go to communion to do the confirmation classes, as a lot of Catholics know, I used to hate that. Having to wake up at 9 in the morning and go for 2 hours to learn about God and do homework Saturday morning, then Sunday go to church for a whole hour and sign in. Like to me, it was just extra school that I hated. I was already having to go to school Monday through Friday. Now I have to go on my weekends. So yeah, I used to hate that. And like I said, because I had this view about religion and faith and God at an early age, I took it as an attack. Into my teen years, I I completely went a whole 180. Um, I started hanging around the wrong crowd, started doing drugs. I started doing things that I wasn't supposed to, doing some very sketchy and dangerous things. Um, and quite honestly, I got to a point where I thought I was devil worshiper. And these years were some of the darkest years of my life that I can remember, and led me to taking a lot of stupid decisions, where I put my life in danger and other people in danger, where I hurt a lot of people, and I sunk myself deeper and deeper into depression. Throughout these years, I one of my closest friends that I made in high school through one of the groups that we were part of was my friend Ian, who's on the channel with me. And he's always been a church guy, a church boy, and has always been spiritual. And he would always talk about God to like me and this mutual friend that we had. We were kind of a little trio within the group, and he was the other guy was atheist. Ian is obviously spiritual, and then me somewhere. And he used to always talk about like spirituality, talk about God, talk about church, and I used to always get defensive and just kind of like tune him out. It was nothing personal against him, but to me, it was just another church person trying to talk to me about church and why I should go to church and believe in God. Um, there were times because of the darkness that I found myself in that time, I did find myself wanting to turn to God or to at least religion. And there were small times in my in those teen years where I did start believing again, but something would happen and immediately I was like, oh, you see, I'm cursed. I'm not meant to be a spiritual person. God doesn't love me. If there is a God, he hates me. He's punishing me. Um, Fast forward into my early 20s, I obviously graduated high school, got into college. I started hanging around different types of people with different types of mindset. I got away from that street life. I also gave up drugs. I've been over 10 years now sober, and I haven't looked back. And that did help me. It did change my mind. Not mentioning I was a little bit older. I started taking up psychology for my major, which helped me to kind of learn and have a little bit of a interior look into my own psyche and understand even the psyche of like other people. And I also learned compassion. I learned forgiveness. I learned empathy. But something that I also realized was that I started suppressing a lot of that trauma that led me to not believing in God or having any type of spirituality, and kind of hiding behind now psychology, the books. And I wasn't spiritual, I wasn't anything. I wouldn't consider myself anymore the devil worshiper that I was in my teen years. I would consider myself at this time an atheist, or at least an agnostic, because I did believe there was a higher power. I just didn't believe in established religion. Um, and that carried out for a couple years. It wasn't until one day that I just felt a calling within me, and I came across this YouTube channel, a pastor from South Carolina named Pastor Stephen Furtick. And he was talking about, I don't remember exactly. I tried finding the clip to share with you guys. But it was a clip about him talking about, I believe it was Paul. I'm not too sure if it was Paul. Um, any spiritual person that knows about the Bible can comment in the section and correct me if I'm wrong. But I believe it was Paul trying to get to Rome, but ended up stranded in the what's now the country of Malta. And pretty much, just to summarize, what I heard was how God forgave people who were criminals or people who didn't believe in him and turned their backs on him, or um, and that kind of hit me. I don't know why that hit me at that moment. Um, I guess I was just ready to hear the word of God. So I started following this pastor online. I started listening to his sermons, and little by little, I started, healing. Um, I've always said that the past repeats itself for a reason. It's not by coincidence, but to test to see if you have grown and overcome whatever obstacle you might have been challenged with in your past. And that's what happened. When the pandemic happened in 2020, I had shared this in the past that I moved out. I moved into a facility for people with visual impairments here in Chicago, and I was living on my own. Technically, I was sharing the apartment with two other individuals with visual impairments, and I got along with one. The other one I didn't. Go check that out if you guys want to find out about my horror stories, roommate story time. Um, and I lived there for a year. And the good part was that I was able to be independent on my own. I was cooking for myself, buying groceries for myself, paying rent, bills, cleaning after myself, my own privacy. Just the negative was dealing with the person that I had to share common rooms and the space with. And one thing led to another. Um, I ended up, once my lease was up, I ended up moving out and moving in with family members, because I didn't want to come back home with my tail, come back living with my family with my tail between my legs. Um, I ended up getting run over by a car in 2021, and I had to get screws put into my foot, my right foot. And it was just a time where I felt everything was going bad. At this time, I had finished my associate's degree in social work, and I had started my bachelor's degree, but I felt burnt out. So I stepped away in 2020. That's when me, Jesus, and Ian agreed and started our channel on the platform of Anchor, and we started podcasting. and that was a outlet, what's it called, an outlet for me, and it gave me some sort of direction in life. But once, because we were using my space, my apartment as the space where we were recording, once my lease was up and I moved out, we had nowhere to record, so we had to postpone it for about almost 2 years, which just made me feel worse. Around this time, I had to move back with my family, and around this time, I also had gotten my guide dog Lucy. But like I mentioned, I had to get surgery on my foot, and it was just everything felt like I was regressing and I was going back, and every all the progress that I felt I had made and how far I had came to that point, I had returned back, and I had gone backwards, and I felt like I had failed. That's when my faith once again was challenged, and once again I fell backwards into blaming God and blaming life and feeling cursed, and just going down a dark path. I ended up in a relationship for 2 years with a person that I feel I did wrong, because I felt that I needed to find some sort of purpose in my life, and an opportunity with somebody that, show me love, show me affection, show me attention. I took it thinking that, okay, I'm gonna get married, I'm gonna move out, live on my own, this and that. Things didn't work out, as I've shared in the past. Um, with said person, we broke up a couple months ago, and it was a wake up call that I also needed. Because I did, throughout those 2 years, I was working, um, and I stopped working for because of my mental health. Um, and it was at a place where I wasn't happy. And I get it, before anybody comes and tells me, oh, work isn't supposed to be fun and this and that. But I've always said, you're gonna have to deal with a bunch of bullshit no matter what type of job you have. But I believe in life, because life is too short. If you're gonna deal with all the bullshit in your job, it better be a job that you actually enjoy and that you actually are passionate about. That doesn't mean that you're gonna like it or like everybody that you work with or for, but yeah. Um, so something happened. When the breakup happened, it kind of gave me a wake up call that I needed to make a change in my life. I started once again praying to God. Started listening to my pastor. I started I started working out too, because around the 2 years, for different reasons, I stopped taking care of my own health. And my body changed. Shocker. My diet and my exercise was non-existent, so I put on some few pounds. So I got back into working out. I've always been, pretty active, so that also kind of took a big toll when I wasn't active. So when I kind of started getting back into being more active, exercising, started doing more affirmations, I started meditating, I started therapy a little bit more stronger on dealing with some of the things and addressing some of the issues that I had noticed was still in me that I was battling. I started just reflecting on everything that had happened in between those years. I reached out. It was a side story in my story. Uh, it was one day I was walking in my neighborhood going to go run some errands, and it was a lady who stopped me in the middle of the street. It was a Hispanic lady, and she asked me in Spanish if I knew where the church where I had done my communion confirmation was at. That's a couple minutes away from where I live. And I had told her, I was like, yeah, and I was about to give her directions and everything. She stopped me, and she was like, you should go. And I was like, I kind of thought you were just asking me for directions. And I was like, yeah, I will. And she was like, no, I'm serious. You should go. And I was like, yeah, no, yeah, I will. And she was like, okay. And she turned and she looked at me and she was like, it's almost like somebody wanted me to tell you that. And what kind of got me that for months now, I have been praying to God and asking God, give me a sign. Because I kind of had seen that I'm like, I tried getting jobs in the field of social work. I did, work in different agencies and stuff that help different populations. And I felt that I needed a new direction to continue on helping people, but in a new direction. And I thought about it. I was like, my spiritual journey, it's beginning. Well, not just beginning. It's changed. And I was like, I would like to see if I can help somebody who is struggling in that same thing, in the same place in life as as I have, and I have, and I still am. I'm not gonna pretend like I'm this holy man and all this other bullshit. I'm not. I'm the same sinner dumbass that I've always been. Um, so I did ended up reaching out to this church. I got in contact. I ended up joining a support group, and I'm doing some volunteer work at the church. And I started just getting closer to God. Um, as of today, I feel the closest I've ever been to my faith. I've had to forgive a lot of people that I held grudges and resentments towards. I've had to let go a lot of people, but I also let go a lot of old mindsets that I had that kept me in that little place, in that little mindset, trapped in that old way of thinking. And I had to let go a lot of old behaviors and attitudes and beliefs. I had to be gentle with myself and forgive myself and heal. Um, I always remind myself with all the political shit, like I've always stated on this channel, it's not a political channel. I don't lean near nor left nor right. I feel there's bullshit on every side. Um, and obviously with the chaos that's happening right now in the US and just in the whole entire world, I always find myself getting caught in hearing all the bullshit that's happening. And I try to catch myself, and I'm like, I need to cleanse my damn soul, my spirit, out of all that negativity. And that's been one of the hardest things, because that was the way I coped with things. That was the way I solved my issues before. That was the place in life and in my inside of myself where I used to hide. Was depression, was anxiety, was anger, was hate, was violence, was drugs, was toxic relationships, and thinking that I wasn't worth anything. And I used that as an excuse. But I'm doing better now. It's a everyday fight. It's not like, now that I found faith and found God, that everything has changed. No, it's just my perception has changed. And the way I feel and the way I behave and the way I talk and the way I act towards certain things has changed. So to anybody who's going through that, anybody who's struggling with their spirituality or faith, anybody who's traveling through their own spiritual journey, or you've come out of it, I want you to know that you're not alone. If you believe in a higher power, if whatever your religion you believe in, I would tell you, get closer to that higher power. Because there's so much evil, there's so much hatred, there's so much pain, there's so much of just ugliness in this world that we need to get to the light, to the beauty, as corny as that might sound. And maybe to some of you guys it might not mean anything. To many of you guys it might just sound like another guy that just found God and is trying to justify the bad things that I do. No, I stand by what I've done. I hold myself responsible, and I face consequences for everything, all the people that I've hurt and all the decisions that I made, because you can't undo certain things in life. But I'm grateful to God that I'm here. I'm grateful, and I feel blessed that God has given me everything, from my parents to my family to everybody else related to me that I love, to my friends, to this team that I have on this channel, to this opportunity to talk to people. And I hope that this, at least one person, hopefully it can help. If you relate, hopefully they can help you. But with that being said, guys, that's just my little spiritual journey that I wanted to share with you guys. Hopefully you guys will enjoy it. If you like, please share your own spiritual journeys respectfully in the comment section. If you haven't subscribed, please do so, as we are trying to continue to grow, and that way we continue to bring a more positive message in this crazy world of ours that we live in and find ourselves in. And please hit that like, share, and download. So hope you guys are doing well. Take care. I'm Richie. Take care. See you next time.